Hello again, and welcome to my Battle Pass furniture review for version 6.6. The furniture this time is called Miniature Stonecraft, and it's an outdoor-only furnishing that costs 850 load. 850 load is relatively reasonable. Emphasis on relatively, since a lot of the Battle Pass furnishings have been costing a lot of load lately. The only other furnishing in the game that has 850 for their load costs is the Molten Lava Pool, which is the new fish pond we got from Natlan. Putting them side by side like this clearly shows that it's still not exactly an efficient furnishing. But let's put that aside for now and take a closer look. As you can see, it's essentially a stone sculpture of the Seelie statues that we see all over Teyvat. Or for those of you who are more savvy, you may know them as Seelie quartz. But there are some pretty noticeable differences. For one, it's ginormous in comparison. It's way bigger than the typical Seelie statues. It's also in really good condition with none of the weathering effects that we would normally see on these statues. And for the most obvious difference, there's an actual Seelie made out of stone floating above it. By default, the Seelie is in a sleeping position, curled up with its eye closed, which is kinda cute. But there's actually an interaction to sculpt the Seelie into a different pose, where it changes to be awake and has sort of a curious expression. It's interesting to note that the Seelie isn't connected to the statue base at all, giving it a more magical feel. But unfortunately, it doesn't have any floating animation or anything like that. Other than the quick interaction to toggle between the two poses, the statue is completely static and doesn't emit light, noise, or make any movement. Looking more closely at the Seelies themselves, I will say that I think their shape looks a little strange to me. I understand that they were trying to portray this cape-like part that typically trails behind them, but to me it looks a little weird that this pose has it surrounding their heads like this, almost like a silly hat. But maybe they're just putting on something warm to prepare for the Snezhnaya teapot. Another cool detail is that the Seelies have painted blue lines around their tail, which does match up with the patterns they have in-game. But I thought it was interesting that this is the only part of the statue that has paint. It would have been amazing if they actually had some kind of mini-game that loosely resembles the gameplay of Seelies, where we need to find a Seelie and lead it back to the statue or something like that, but maybe that's unrealistic. I was a little disappointed to find out that the statue pose always reverts back to the default starting pose, which is the sleeping Seelie. Anytime you leave your teapot and come back, all your Seelie statues will reset themselves to this pose. Maybe it'd be difficult for them to do, but it would have been great if this change was permanent. Also, after some testing, I found out that the statues are not usable in multiplayer, meaning that visitors in your teapot will not be able to see the Start Sculpting button prompt. They also cannot see the effect of you pressing the button, and the Seelie statues are always in the sleeping pose for them. With all of these restrictions, there's part of me that wishes they had removed this interactivity in favor of significantly decreasing the load cost, but maybe that's just me. And in case you're wondering, they aren't climbable, so you can't stand on top of them or anything like that. I think these statues would be a fun way to spruce up a teleport waypoint. Well, of course you can't completely hide a waypoint with this. I actually think they look cool combined together. You can also sync the statues so only the Seelies are visible, but just keep in mind that this will cause the interaction area to be unreachable. Here I've made a sort of Nicole wishing shrine type of build as a quick example of a fun way to use these statues. I think in general they work pretty well with some of the Nodcry furnishings we've gotten. Now, of course, it's no coincidence that this furnishing coincides with Nicole's release. It's clearly themed after her, considering she's deeply connected to Seelies and has a hobby for making stone sculptures. In fact, reading the description of the furnishing, it's apparently modeled after one of Nicole's Seelie friends, whose name is Mr. 9. I always love to find what kind of fun facts they'll hide inside the item descriptions. So let's wrap this up with my recommendation. Would I recommend this? Yeah, I think I would, especially if you like Nicole and have plans to make any kind of build themed around her. But overall, the interactivity has some restrictions and isn't particularly exciting. And the load cost could certainly stand to be lower, which is why they don't have me overly enthused. But as always, please let me know what you think, since that's just my opinion and I love hearing yours. Thank you for watching.